Greetings, dear viewers. The idea for this video was suggested to me by a viewer with the nickname Gerald Hertz. I hope I pronounced it correctly. For what? A huge thank you to this person. And in this short video, we will be talking about the Polish motorcycle Junak. Junak is the only motorcycle with a four-stroke engine that was produced in the Polish People's Republic. The word Junak itself, meaning young man, is also found in the Ukrainian language, where it has the same meaning as in Polish. The machine was produced in quite large numbers, but over time it was forgotten. The design was quite advanced for its time, but it turned out to be expensive and unreliable. Let's take a closer look at the history of this Polish motorcycle. Work on a new type of heavy motorcycle equipped with a four-stroke engine began at the Automotive Industry Design Bureau in Warsaw in 1952. The creators of this vehicle were Krzysztof Wojcicki, who developed the engine, and Stefan Porozinski, who developed the chassis, and had previously participated in the development of the pre-war heavy motorcycle Soko. By the way, I have an idea to make a video about this military motorcycle. Let me know if you're interested in this topic. The chief designer of the project was Józef Ignatowicz. All of them were experienced engineers who had studied the best German and American models of that time and applied a number of developments in their own project. At the same time, the Junak, of its own design, has no direct Western counterpart, but among the people, it was nicknamed the Polish Harley. Initially, there was an idea to create a 500cc engine, but in the end, the engineers settled on a displacement of 350. The designers also had the idea to make an engine with water cooling, but during the testing of the first prototypes, they abandoned this idea. The thermosiphon system couldn't handle the load, and adding a pump made the design more complicated. The prototype of the Junak motorcycle was created with the help of the Warsaw Motorcycle Factory and was shown to the public at the Decade exhibition in Wrocław in 1954. At that time, it was a very modern motorcycle. The overhead valve engine with 17 horsepower combined with a 4-speed gearbox provided good dynamic performance. The motorcycle's frame and suspension were also of a high standard. The first problems arose with the location of Junak production. In the end, it was decided that the engine would be produced at the VSM plant in Lodz, while the other parts and components, as well as the assembly into the finished product, would be carried out at the Szczecin metal production plants. Production continued together, and in connection with the Junak complex, a trial series of 30 motorcycles was produced in 2007. But actual production of the Junak M07 began in 1957. A year later, the designers at SHFM developed and presented to the public a model of a three-wheeled motorcycle, designated as B21. This version had a cargo compartment in the front and two small steerable front wheels. The tricycle had a load capacity of 300 kilograms. The following year, work began on upgrading the motorcycle's design. Upgraded drum brakes were also used, the fenders became deeper, and the shape of the headlight housing changed. The early version of the M07 had an interesting electrical system. The ignition was powered by a magneto, while a separate generator was used for lighting. On the next version, the M10, they finally abandoned the magneto. In 1960, a new model, Junak M10, was introduced with an engine producing 19 horsepower. Some sources mention the figure 23. Production volumes gradually increased. In 1958, 2,800 motorcycles rolled off the assembly line. In 1959, the number was already 8,000, and a year later, production reached 12,000 units. The M10 model had a frame adapted for use with a sidecar. Therefore, a sidecar with the index VB1 was put into production. Based on the M10 components, the B20 tricycle was developed, but this time with a cargo compartment at the back. The drive to the rear wheels was transmitted through a cylindrical differential. The collapsible design of the load-bearing structure made it possible to transform the vehicle into a regular motorcycle. In 1962, the factory reached its design production capacity of 20,000 motorcycles per year. However, the motorcycle had many problems. First, the price was sky high, 25,000 zlotys. Let me put it this way so you understand. At that time, this amount was, mind you, the average annual salary of a Polish employee. Secondly, the quality of certain parts was poor. Common issues were connecting rod failure, short clutch life, and pricing. The gears of the 4-speed gearbox were different in each batch. Some lasted almost forever, while others barely made it 2,000 or 3,000 kilometers. This was due to the unstable supply of quality metal. All of this together led to a decline in demand. By 1964, due to the decline in demand, the production of Junak was reduced to 10,000 units per year. In the same year, at the exhibition dedicated to the 20th anniversary of production in Podzamcze, a Junak designated MM14 was presented in the SHFM pavilion. It was a motorcycle with a very modern silhouette, but it was not destined to go into mass production. In 1965, after a batch of motorcycles was sold to Mongolia, the production of Junak was discontinued, and the plant itself began producing drive systems and steering mechanisms for all car models manufactured in Poland. Throughout its history, Junak produced 91,415 motorcycles, of which about 2,500 were tricycles. Officially, Junak was supplied to Turkey, Bulgaria, Hungary, Argentina, Venezuela, and Cuba. It is possible that some Polish motorcycles made their way to the United States from Cuba, where this Polish curiosity attracts great interest from collectors of vintage machinery. During its heyday, SHFM had its own test track and a motocross track, where they tested, among other things, the motocross versions of Junak. The motorcycle was also used by the traffic police. In this version, it had a single seat with a radio in place of the second seat, a fairing with additional lights, and a siren. Over time, these vehicles were replaced by East German motorcycles, MZ. Against the backdrop of this motorcycle's popularity in certain parts of the USSR and Cuba, in the mid-2010s, production of the motorcycle was revived under the same designation, but with Korean engines. That's it, friends. My story comes to an end. You've been watching the CrossMoto channel. As always, you can support the channel by subscribing, leaving a comment, liking, and sharing this video with others. Thank you for your attention. See you next time.